Hi, this is video 2 in our playlist where we're going to be looking at the Edexcel higher paper from June 2018. In the last video we finished at question number 6, so we're going to start at question number 7. I'm going to aim to work for about 20 to 30 minutes or so. Please do stop the video, have a go at each of the questions and then compare your solutions. Okay, so let's move straight on with question number 7, which is asking us to find the value of x, or solve this particular equation. Okay, so if you can imagine, what we've got here is basically two fractions. So I've got 5 minus x over 2 and then 2x minus 7 over 1, and the process I'm going to use is cross multiplication, because the whole idea is I just need to kind of get rid of this 2. So if I multiply across, I can do 2 times 2x minus 7 and then 1 times 5 minus x. So what I actually end up with is 5 minus x equals to 2 times 2x minus 7. Now you might have seen a slightly different explanation than that, but nevertheless that's what we want to try to get to, is we want to really get rid of that number 2 as a denominator. Okay, so if I multiply out the brackets, I'm going to get on the left hand side 5 minus x, and then I'm going to get 4x minus 14, and then really it's just a case of getting x on one side and numbers on the other. Sometimes it is quite natural really to want to get the x on the left hand side. However, in this particular case, because this is a minus x, if I minus 4x, I'm going to get minus 5x, and it's just a little bit untidy. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to add x to both sides, and if I do that, it means I lose the x on this side, but I gain the x on this side. So on the right hand side I end up with 5x minus 14. On the left hand side I just end up with 5. Okay, so then it's a case of moving the minus 14 over to the left hand side by adding it. So I can add 14 to both sides. Okay, and I'm going to get 19 equals 5x, and then I'm simply going to divide through by 5. So if I divide by 5, I get x equals 19 over 5. Okay, and actually that's sufficient for this particular question. However, if you want to change it into some sort of mixed number, you could just divide through by 5 and you're going to get x equals 4 and 4/5. So that's fine if you want to do that, but it doesn't really matter. In this particular case, I would write 19 over 5. Okay, hope that's okay for you. Let's move on then to question number 8. Now, question number 8, we've got a pentagon. Okay, and in the pentagon we're given various angles, and it says work out the size of angle BCD. So let's have a look at that. BCD, so it's actually this angle here, and what we're saying is that BCD is 2 times angle ABC. So in other words, if this angle ABC is x, then BCD is 2x. Okay, so it's a bit like before when we were dealing with the probability question in, I think, video 1. Using this value of x can be quite useful for us. Okay, then it says work out the size of angle BCD and you must show all your working. Okay, so there's a couple of things going on here. What I happen to know is that the internal angles of a pentagon add up to 540 degrees. Now the reason I know that is that from a single point, let's say this point here, I can make 1, 2, 3 triangles. Hopefully you can see that okay on the video. Now each triangle is 180 degrees, so therefore I can say that the internal angles of a regular pentagon is going to be 180 times 3, which is 540 degrees. Now you might know a formula to do that, or you might do it in a slightly different way, But nevertheless, that's what it breaks down to, and fundamentally is that actually what we can do is create triangles, and these triangles are each 180 degrees. There's 3 of them, so it must be 540 in total. So what we're saying is that all of these angles added together are going to be 540 degrees. Okay, so let's just write that out as a equation. I've got 90 degrees, which is this one at the bottom here, plus 115, plus 125, plus x, plus 2x, and all of that added together is going to equal to 540. And then really it's just a case of solving it for x, okay? So again, you might do it slightly differently. I would just add those up to 330. I would add those two to 3x, so I've got 330 plus 3x equals 540, minus the 330 from both sides, I get 3x equals 210. Okay, so that means if I divide through then by 3, I get an x value of 70 degrees. Okay, which is fine for me, and that will give me then the angle of ABC, because remember that this is just a single value of x. It's actually this one at the very top here, okay? But the question is asking us to work out the angle of BCD, in other words, this one here. Well, that's going to be 2 lots of x, so that's actually going to be 140 degrees, okay? So just to answer the question, I can write something like angle BCD equals 140 degrees, and that would be perfectly fine to answer the question. Okay, hope that's all right for you. Let's move on then to question number 9. Okay, so things are starting to get a little bit more tricky as we start to work through towards the middle of the paper here. Okay, now it says we've got this formula, W equals that and D equals that, and we've got to work this out as the value of t. So basically we need to take those numbers and put them into the formula. And again, it's like a lot of these things, you just got to be a little bit careful about how you do these things. Okay, so let's write it out in sort of longhand. I'm going to have t equals and a big square root sign. Okay, now W is fairly straightforward because it's going to be 5.6 times 10 to the minus 5, okay? Now, remember that what they've given you is D, the value of D, but the equation actually calls for D cubed, okay? So brackets are quite useful. You can put 1.4 times 10 to the minus 4 and then cubed. Okay, so it's that cubed bit that I think will be the extra marks in this particular question. Okay, plug that into a calculator and you're going to end up with something like 4517.5395. Okay, now when you've got an answer like that, always please refer back to the question itself, because it does give your answer, it does say give your answer correct to 3 significant figures. Okay, so we look at the third significant figure, which is a 1. Ask ourselves, does that stay as a 1 or does it change to a 2? Well, in this particular case, it's going to change to a 2 because that number here is above 5. So to answer this question, it's going to be 4520. Okay, hope that's all right for you. Okay, then it says W is increased by 10% and D is increased by 5%. Okay, then it says the value of T will increase because W and D are increased. Lottie is wrong. Explain why. Okay, well, I think probably the easiest way of doing this is actually just to plug the numbers back into the formula. So what I'm going to do is, again, I'm going to write a very big square root sign. Okay, so W is increased by 10%. So what that means is that we multiply the value of W, which you'll remember is 5.6 times 10 to the minus 5, but actually I'm going to multiply that by 1.1. Okay, because if I multiply it by 1.1, it's 10% increase. Okay, and again I can use the same idea with the D value, because now rather than writing 1.4 times 10 to the minus 4, I can write 1.05 times 1.4 times 10 to the minus 4. Okay, that's the value of D, and again, don't forget that it's cubed. Okay, so it's these numbers here, 1.1 for the 10% increase and 1.05 for the 5% increase. Okay, and what I'll get from that is going to be an answer of 4403.67, which actually is 4400. Okay, rounded to 3 significant figures. Okay, that's right, isn't it? Yeah, 3 significant figures. Okay, so if we want to explain why, we can just simply say that 4400 is less than 4520, therefore Lottie is actually wrong. Okay, if you prefer, you could say that 1.05 cubed, which is this here, cubed, is actually greater than 1.1, and that's perhaps a slightly better explanation, but I think looking at the mark scheme, it would still be absolutely sufficient for you to do that rather than this. And what we're saying here is the denominator value has increased, and because it's increased, it means this value is going to be greater, and then square rooted will be less. Okay, I hope that's okay for you. Let's move on then to question number 10. We're about halfway through the video, and we've got this light bulbs, and basically all it's asking us to do really is to work out the LCM of the 3 light bulbs. Okay, well, probably for me, what I would look at is saying, well, if we got these 3 lamps, they all flash at different rates. So A is 20, B is 45, C is 120. Well, that's the important one for me, because light bulb C is only going to flash every 120 seconds. Okay, like that. All right. So if we then decide that actually let's just sort of stop there and look at light bulb B, well, at 360 seconds it's also going to flash, because it's going to flash every 45 seconds. So actually by the time it's flashed 8 times, it's got to 360. Okay, and it's a similar thing actually with light bulb A, because light bulb A, by the time it gets to 360 seconds, and bearing in mind it has to kind of flash at the same time as the other 2, then it's actually flashed 18 times. So it's sort of a way of putting these together in a maybe a little bit more pragmatic approach to these sorts of problems. Okay, so what we're saying is that this is the seconds value, so it will flash together every 360 seconds. All right, so be careful about that, because the question is actually asking how many times in 1 hour will the 3 lamps flash at the same time. Okay, well, 360 seconds is the same as 6 minutes. Okay, and we need to find out how many lots of 6 minutes there are in 1 hour, so that's going to be 60 divided by 6, which is going to be 10. Okay, so therefore the 3 lamps will flash together 10 times every hour. Okay, hope that's all right for you. Let's move on then to question number 11. All right, question number 11 deals with, well, we've got this house. Okay, so in 2003, Jerry bought a house, he sold it to Mia, made a profit of 20%. Okay, all right, so we're going to work a little bit backwards, okay, because unfortunately Mia sold the house at a 10% loss. So what we've got to do first is kind of work out how much she bought it for. Okay, so the way we would do that is if we look at Mia's situation, what we're saying is that the 162,000 that she sold it for is equal to 90% of the buying price of what she actually bought it for. Okay, so that's our statement, and then it's really a case of putting that into algebra and just finding out what the buying price is. So if I change that, I've got 162,000. I'm going to change this to a decimal of 0.9, and rather than put buying price, I'm just going to put P. Okay, so if I want to find the value of P, I divide through by 0.9, and I find out that she actually bought the house for 180,000. Okay, so she then actually, Jerry had made that 180,000 when he sold it to Mia was representative of a profit of 20%. Okay, so we can use the same principle to kind of work backwards again. So let's look at Jerry's situation. So with Jerry, okay, his 180,000, which he sold it to Mia at, is going to be 120% of his buying price because it was a 20% profit. Okay. So let's do exactly the same thing, just convert that into something that we can work with. So we've got 180,000 is equal to 1.2. Again, I'm going to use P again. Why not? It's fine. Okay. All right. If I divide through by 1.2, I'm going to get 150,000. Now that 150,000 would represent the buying price that Jerry bought the house for back in 2003. Okay. So to answer this particular question, it would be 150,000. Okay, hope that's all right. Let's move on then to question number 11. If you're not sure about any of these questions, please do have a look on the channel and have a look at some of the playlists, and there are examples of these sorts of questions. And also add a comment below and I'll always come back to you. Okay, so let's move on then to question number 12. Well, in question number 12, we've got a graph showing the volume of liquids in a container at a time of t. All right, so the first thing is find the gradient of the graph. Well, that should be okay for you because all we can do really is just work out the difference in y divided by the difference in x. So it doesn't really matter where we draw our triangle, but that's perfectly fine for us. Now in this particular situation, I can see the difference in y is the difference between 10 and 4, which is 6, okay? And then the difference in x is going to be the difference between 4 and 0, which is 4. Okay, so the gradient of the graph, okay, I would put gradient equals, I usually put diff y over diff x. Okay, I know there are some people out there who will do y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. That's perfectly fine, it's not a problem. This is what works for me, okay? And I can work out 6 over 4. Now if I just make that a little bit easier, I can say that's 3 over 2 or 1.5. So the gradient is 1.5 or 3 over 2. Okay, then it says explain what this gradient represents. All right, well the gradient represents the rate at which the container is filling with water. So as the time increases, the depth of the water increases. Okay, so it's the rate at which the container, I'm sorry about my writing, container is filling. Okay, all right, hopefully that's all right for you. Then it says the container or the graph intersects the volume axis at L equals 4. Explain what this intercept represents. Okay, and all it really means is that the container already had, so if I put the container already had 4 litres of liquid. Okay, so in other words, It just meant that the 4 litres were already there before filling started. Okay, I think we've got time for one more question, which is on similar shapes. Okay, and what we've got is two, I think they're chess pieces. Okay, so it says here are two similar solid shapes. Surface area of shape A to surface area of shape B is 3 to 4. Okay, the volume of shape B is blah, work out the volume of shape A. All right, so we're going to be a little bit careful with this. Okay, so what we're saying is that the surface area between A and B, okay, is 3 to 4. All right. So if I divide both sides through by 3, it means that I can write this as that, okay? So shape B is 4 over 3 or 1 1/3 times bigger than shape A. Okay, hope that's all right for you. Okay, so what we're saying is because that's surface area, then that surface area ratio actually represents the constant squared. So the constant squared is 4 over 3. Okay, now again, I'm not sure how you've looked at similar shapes before, but please do have a look. There are quite a few examples on a playlist on the channel. If you're not sure, please do have a look at this. Because once we got that, and we know that surface area, it allows us to write the k squared constant, which is the surface area constant, which means that the linear constant is the square root of that. And the volume constant is that cubed. Okay? So this is really the 3 ratios that you always need to be able to answer, or you need to be able to kind of work these out, and generally, provided you can work these out, then you should be able to answer most of these questions, okay? Because I know now this is what I'm interested in, okay? If I'm interested in that, because this is the volume constant for me, therefore I can use that to say, well, in that case, the volume of shape A, okay, is equal to 10 for shape B. But remember that shape A is going to be this particular constant less that. It's actually going to be that divided by this particular constant. So it looks a little bit torturous, okay, but it's actually going to be 4 over 3 that cubed. Okay, I've just realized that this is k, so this is k cubed. I'm so sorry about that. Okay, so you've got to make sure you put this awful square root 4 over 3 and then cube it. So this is the value of k, and then we're going to cube it. Okay, and we're going to say, well, actually this is the volume constant that will give us then the volume of shape A, because shape B is 10, so shape A is going to be the same ratio but less than 10. Okay, so when I pop that in my calculator, it takes a little bit of working out, but you should get something like 6.49519, okay, which to 3 significant figures, which it asks you for in the question. The 3rd significant figure is 9, so I need to round that up to 10. That affects that, so actually it's going to be 6.50 to 3 sig fig. Okay, quite a tricky one, that one, particularly if you're not familiar with how similar shapes work together. And hopefully I didn't confuse you too much with this whole idea of having these 3 different constants. But hopefully you appreciate that this is the surface area, which is this one, and surface area is a k squared constant. So that means that k, which is the linear one, is going to be the root of it, and k cubed is going to be the root of it cubed. Okay, hope that's been all right for you. So hopefully the rest of the questions will be a little bit less challenging than that particular one. I'm going to stop the video at this particular point. That's going to be about 25 minutes. Please do add a comment below if you're not sure about anything. I'll always come back to you, and I'll look forward to seeing you in video 3, which is where we're going to start again from question number 14.